Hey, this is Rhett with TestingTheory.com, and today I want to talk to you about the living roadmap and how the best optimization organizations in the world use a living roadmap to guide their testing efforts. In the classic story of Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein, the scientist, creates this monster that comes alive. And when he has this moment of success and the monster is alive, he says, "It's alive, it's alive." That's what good testers do. The testing roadmap is alive. And if you can have a living roadmap that's breathing and functional, you'll get better tests and do better testing. Suppose you want to do some testing on your homepage because it has a lot of traffic and a high bounce rate. You want to bring that bounce rate down and get more people engaging with your content and your products on the site. So you make a plan and you decide first you're going to test the hero banner, and then you're going to test the featured products, and then you're going to do some tests on promotion on the homepage. What you've just created is a roadmap of 3 tests that you're going to run on the homepage. Now suppose that you run the hero banner test on your homepage and you find that by putting a promotion in the hero banner spot, you dramatically increase revenue per visitor. Now that you know this, you'll likely want to go into testing more promotions rather than testing the featured products like you had originally planned, because you've just learned that promotions are very valuable in driving revenue per visitor for your site. If your roadmap is flexible enough to allow you to incorporate new test ideas because you've learned something through testing, so you can get those new tests that are valuable sooner, you now are using a living roadmap. And the main reason for having a living roadmap is because we don't know what we don't know. We'll run a test and we'll learn something, and we'll want to take that something that we learned that was valuable and get it into future tests so we can get more of that value. Often we'll run a test and we'll be left with more questions. Something will win and show some value, but we'll have several other questions of things that we wonder about because of something that was unexpected. Those questions and that value needs to be prioritized into the living roadmap. So what is a living roadmap? It's very simple. There's 3 things. It's a roadmap, which means it's a plan for the upcoming tests you're going to run. And most importantly, it's a flexible plan, meaning it can be changed. But I want to throw in a caveat here. If you make a plan and that plan is super flexible and can be changed on a dime for any whim in the company or any person that's doing testing with you, that can be very dangerous. And so you want to make sure you're allowing the livingness and the flexibleness of your roadmap to not be used to your detriment. And so I want to help you understand when you should have flexibility and make changes to your roadmap and when you shouldn't. And there are some good reasons to make changes and be flexible, and there are some bad reasons to make changes to your roadmap. And let's walk through those. There's a few good reasons why you would want to make a change to your roadmap. And the first being that you ran a test and you learned something or you saw some positive results, and you want to capitalize on those positive results by doing more of that thing. So that's the first thing, when you want to capitalize on something you've learned or on positive results you've seen with a test. The second reason to make a change to your roadmap is because you've learned something with a test that indicates there's probable opportunity by testing similar things because of the thing you learned with the previous test. And so when you can see that there's probably potential value that's not tapped, that's another time when you want to make changes to your living roadmap and test those things that look to be valuable. And the third good reason why you should make changes to your roadmap and have a living roadmap is when there's actual changes in the business. And you got to be careful with this, because I don't mean when some executive comes to you and says, "We're doing this, let's change it." Well, but a real business strategy change. For example, when I worked at Adobe, one of the things that the CEO did at the time was they moved from having a product-based company where you bought Photoshop separately and you bought InDesign separately and you bought Adobe Analytics separately, and they moved to the cloud-based service where they now had the Marketing Cloud and the Creative Cloud. And so that business model change led us to change the testing that we were doing with Adobe at the time. And we had to change our success metrics, we had to change the things that we were driving our test towards, because the model itself had changed. And we knew that the goal of the company was to get more people on the subscription service, which actually was lower revenue per visitor at the time when we were selling these high ticket priced items. And so a revenue per visitor metric wasn't valid for us to test towards because that wasn't the direction of the company. So when your business model changes, that's a good time to reevaluate your testing roadmap to see if you need to change the tests that you're doing to make sure you're driving towards the business strategy. So those are a few reasons to change your roadmap to make sure it's living and to incorporate valuable changes and future tests into the roadmap. But you have to be cautious. Again, it can be misused if you don't do it judiciously, because there are reasons why you shouldn't change your roadmap. For example, you've heard of the HIPPO, the highest paid person's opinion. If you start having executives come in who tell you to change these or tests or do different tests because they had some amazing idea, that you got to be careful. You don't want any executive to be driving the roadmap. It should be the testing team and the prioritization that goes into that decides the roadmap. Now, they can contribute ideas, but anytime something gets mandated or changed because someone wants to do it, that's when you're in dangerous territory, and you probably shouldn't be changing a roadmap for those things. Another common reason I see why people change their roadmap when they shouldn't is because of internal politics. There's always going to be someone who wants to prove themselves right, someone who wants to make their team look good, someone who may be caring for that next promotion, and internal politics can be a really bad reason to change your roadmap because some people want to do those tests when they aren't in the best interest of the company. And finally, this kind of goes along with the other ones, the executives and the internal politics, but if someone is ever trying to prove themselves right or prove themselves wrong, again, another bad reason to change the testing roadmap. So, and there's more reasons why people change their roadmap and they shouldn't, but these are just a few of things that whenever that human element of using power unwisely gets into testing roadmaps and priorities, that's, you're in dangerous territory. So you might wonder what goes on the roadmap itself. I like to keep the roadmap very simple. The roadmap to me is just a few fields. It has the name of the test. It might have a very brief description so people understand what that test is. And then it has a score. You want to prioritize and reprioritize each test on the roadmap by the efficiency score. And if you're not familiar with the efficiency score, you should watch my video on that efficiency score. But that's where you can create a score to help you know the potential value and the potential cost of that test. Other than the name, the description, and the score, I also like to have a little field for dependencies. If there are dependencies for a test idea, whether things have to come first or whether other tests might be held up if this test isn't ran, those dependencies become very important when you're evaluating your roadmap and the priority of your roadmap. So those are the four fields I like: your name, your description, your efficiency score, and finally any dependencies that might exist. You can see that the roadmap itself is very simple. You don't want a complex roadmap. You want to be able to flesh out those ideas as they're decided upon. You might have a test that lives in your roadmap for years at a time because it always gets deprioritized because it's not good enough compared to the other tests that come into the roadmap. That's a good thing. You want to be continually reprioritizing your test ideas, evaluate those ideas based on their potential gains for the company, and to make that roadmap living. You don't want it static. You don't want things just sitting there. You want things continually flowing in and flowing out because you're running tests and you're adding new ideas because you learn new things about the test you're running. So that is a living roadmap. Make sure that you keep your roadmap alive. Don't let it become static or stagnant. Make sure that things are flowing in and flowing out. Make sure you don't change your roadmap for the bad reasons, for the hippo, the executive, or to prove people right. And make sure you are changing your roadmap for good reasons because you learn things from previous tests or you have potential untapped opportunities that need to be tested. Make sure you're changing to pivot with the business direction to make sure you're testing towards the right things and for the company. Thanks for joining me today. I hope this video on the living roadmap was helpful. If you liked that, then give me the thumbs up so that I know you liked it. You can also visit me at testingtheory.com where you can sign up for some free consulting, where you can see other video courses, and just learn more about good testing in general.